By the end of this tutorial, you'll know everything that you need to know to make this cool effect using geometry nodes for this visual effects shot. Join me and let's learn together. So for today's shot, we're going to need three main things. First, of course, is the footage, and then we need a 3D asset in order to materialize, and then finally we need an HDRI in order to light the scene. Lucky for you, I'm going to provide all three down in the description below that you can use for free. I just launched my visual effects asset library called Visual Effects Oasis, and on there you can find a pack that contains all three of our things that we need for this specific shot. Just use the code OASIS on the screen now at checkout, and you should be able to get the entire pack totally for free. Again, the link is in the description down below, so make sure to go ahead and download it, and let's go hop in the tutorial.
Okay, so here is our scene right here. I did do a few things just to set us up. First of all is the camera tracking. We have a moving camera, so we do need to go ahead and track that. I have plenty of camera tracking tutorials. I'll link some of mine down below as well in the top right of the screen right now. Also, this plane that we have in our scene, first of all, it's set to be a shadow catcher, so an object visibility shadow catcher over here. And then also I have a texture onto it. All it is just a movie clip, so that's the same movie clip of our actual footage. And then it's just being projected by a window projection and a few different kind of things like color correction. I wanted to do this just because I would have to do this every single time for these tutorials. So if you are interested in how I do it, go watch those tutorials I have linked down below. But anyways, we are ready to go ahead and add in our asset. So if you download the asset from visualeffectsoasis.com, you want to go up to File, and then we're going to go to Append because I give you a blend script. And so we're going to go into that script right now. Okay, so here's our blend script. We're going to click inside of here, go to object, and then load in this object right here. I went ahead and already scaled this to be accurate into the scene. And so as you can see, our glove is matching pretty nicely. Let's go ahead and just rotate that around a little bit, maybe making it face towards camera. Something like that is looking good. Next thing I want to go ahead and do is do some lighting into the scene before I do anything, including our geometry tracking. I always like to make sure the lighting is looking pretty nice. Let's also make sure that our little glove is resting nice on the plane. Like that. That is looking pretty good. Let's enable some of these things just so we can see a little bit easier. But yeah, so now we have this. Let's go ahead and introduce our lighting. Again, on visualeffectsoasis.com, if you go ahead and download the pack that you should have downloaded, I'll give you the actual HDRI that I shot in the scene. So we're going to come over here to the World tab. We're going to bring in a environment texture and plug that into the background. And then let's go ahead and open up that HDRI. Okay, so here it is. You can see all of the assets I have on the site do have the color space in the actual name of the file. And so this is in linear sRGB. We're going to go ahead and open that into our little program. Now, real quickly, I do want to say that I am working in ACES inside of Blender 4.5 right now. In the future, Blender 5.0 is actually going to have ACES natively built into it. But if you're curious on how to actually do an ACES workflow in Blender by default on 4.5 or before, then follow the tutorial I have linked down below. Anyways, we have this down here. We can see our color space right now is set to utility linear sRGB. And so we do want to make sure that we have that accurate. Again, linear sRGB, you just want to follow the name convention that I have here. So linear sRGB right there. Then we're going to hold Control T, and that'll give us a texture coordinate and mapping node. And we do want to go ahead and rotate this HDRI so it's matching in our scene. So if I come over to the film and then turn transparent off, you'll see in the clip, if I turn this back off, you can see over here it's like this pillow. And so we can try to match the rotation of where this pillow is in the scene. And so this pillow should be like right around this area over here. So we'll turn transparency back on, and you can see the pillow right here. So we just need to rotate the scene to match the direction of our HDRI. And so something like this is matching pretty well. So pillow right here. And then if we go into our camera, you can see our pillow is like right in this direction of our actual object. So that is matching pretty well this time. Of course, everything is very dark. And so this is how we have to do things with HDRIs. Inlight VFX actually has an amazing tutorial going over exactly this workflow. I'll link that in the description below. But basically all we have to do is use a program like Nuke or Blender or anything else to get some RGB values to actually go ahead and recolor our HDRI to match the lighting of our actual footage. And so that is what I went ahead and did here. Again, I'll go more into information about that on the tutorials I'll link in the description below. But just know for this specific scene in an ACES workflow, these are the values that we're going to put right here. So I'll put these off to the side, and I'll add a mixed color node inside of here. We're going to place that before the background. We're going to make the factor all the way up to 1 and then do multiply. And then we're going to multiply the B RGB values by those numbers I had over there. So for my scene, it's 5.28 for the red. It's 5.27 for the blue. And then for the green, and then 4.98 for the blue. There we go. So now our lighting is matching a little bit better. Also, I have defocus off or on, so let's turn that off for now. We'll add that in a little bit later, but now you can see the lighting is matching much more closely to the actual footage. It is a little dark, so I'll change the strength up. I think in testing like a 1.2 worked for me, but there you go. Now we have this looking pretty good. And that is our lighting for the scene done. Again, having an HDRI is great for not only lighting, but also reflections. And so on visualeffectsoasis.com, that is what I'm trying to do for you guys, because in the industry, you'll be given HDRIs like this. But anyways, we can go ahead and start talking about our little geometry node setup. So let's select this thing over here. And then we're going to go up to geometry nodes. We're going to make a new geometry node setup. Now you'll have to excuse me because I'm a very beginner in terms of geometry nodes. I actually was following a tutorial based on CG Matters kind of proximity workflow. So I'll have his full tutorial in there. He goes much more into depth. He's much more knowledgeable about geometry nodes. But I still just want to show you guys this effect just because it's a super cool effect that we can achieve in visual effects. But anyways, first we want to go ahead and add a split edges node. Now, one thing to note is this is a photogrammetry add-on, an asset. And so I actually scanned this in real life. So it's very dense mesh and everything. And so that's going to give us all these tiny little face particles. Depending on what kind of asset you're using for this effect, you'll either have larger or smaller polygons. And so just keep that in mind. So we're going to split the edges here. And then we need to go ahead and set position. Now this is going to set the position of each individual faces. Basically these split edges, now all of these faces are individually separated. And so that's going to give us a lot of flexibility to do our little disintegration effect. Next thing we need to do, we're going to add a scale, a vector math node. So down here, we're going to plug that into the offset. And then we're going to go ahead and add a normal. And so a normal node, we bring this into here, plug the normal into the vector. A normal is basically the normal of the face. Every single face has a normal to it. And so that is basically the direction that it's facing outwards, if you will. And so that is going to make us have this where now it's being broken up a lot. The glove looks like it's basically shattering. And so that is kind of the effect that we want. Next thing that we need to do is we need to go ahead and separate these out into a general proximity. And so we're going to add a object info node. We need something to actually control this kind of proximity of this disintegration effect. And since I want it to basically start from the bottom and kind of build itself up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add a new mesh. We're going to add a cube, and I'm just going to scale this down. Now, because I will say, because we have the scene so small in our scene, just because we need to match the actual size of our glove in the 3D space of Blender for, visual effects reasons, such as depth of field, ambient occlusion, all that type of stuff. It is going to make this effect a little bit more difficult just because Blender isn't that great when we get so small in this in this scale of a scene. But anyways, we do need to go ahead and pick select this cube. So I'll pick select our cube, and then we want to make sure this is set on relative just so that all of the information is going in correctly. We can plug this location into the scale right here. And now if we move around our little cube, it should affect the location. And so that is looking good. Real quickly, I'm just going to come to the object properties, go to visibility and change, or sorry, not visibility, viewport display down here. And we're going to display as bounds just so we don't actually see that. I actually have selected the glove. And so we want to make sure that we only have the cube selected and do bounds right there. Just so when we move this around, we can still see the glove. Yeah, so that is giving us a pretty cool effect. We do need to mess around with this a little bit to make it a little bit more exactly how we want it. So first of all, on frame 1, I'm going to have the cube kind of be down here. I want it to basically have the glove kind of exploded out, like it's being processed, or, it's coming out of existence, right? So we're going to put it down here. I'm going to hit I on my keyboard to add a keyframe of the cube down here. And then I'm going to come all the way up to frame 104, it looks like. And then I'm going to G, Z, and move this cube up until it's basically somewhere, we'll say just like right above the glove right there. Don't worry that it's kind of exploded right here. We might need to come back to this and play a little bit around with the keyframes. And then I'm going to hit A down here, right click, and we're going to interpolation mode linear, just so that the animation is kind of going on a linear path. So next thing we need to do is we need to go ahead and determine the proximity of this cube mesh into the actual glove itself. So to do that, we're going to do a geometry, geometry proximity node. And we're going to plug this geometry into the geometry socket up here. And then instead of doing the location for our scale over here, which is giving us this effect over here, we're going to instead do the position over to our scale right there. Hey, this is Future Jacob here. Don't plug the position in the scale. You actually want to plug the distance into the scale. I fix it a little bit later, but I just want to call it out right now. So now you can see it's changing a little bit, but you can see it's doing some cool stuff right there. We do need to mess around with this a little bit. So I'm going to add a quick math range node, just so we can mess around with some of the different values. Now in testing, I did a lot of different kind of testing stuff. From what I found like 0.2 for the from max, and then 2 min, we're gonna do 0.2 as well. And then also the 2 max, we're gonna put to 0 as well. So basically the closer it is to the actual object, it's gonna be fully built. And then the further away it is, it's gonna disintegrate a little bit. So that is the basic effect right now. You can see it kind of separating all this stuff. And then the closer it gets, it kind of is getting built organically and stuff like that. So that is the basic effect so far. Let's go ahead and add a few things onto it. First of all, the further away the proximity is. So up here, I want the actual faces to be further along away from its normal. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a scale elements node right here. We're going to place that after the position, so just in the geometry and the geometry. And then for the actual scale of everything, we're going to go ahead and plug this into our map range node. And this is a little bit too far. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add a multiply node. So this is just going to help us kind of multiply and get the kind of range proximity that we're looking for. So I'm going to multiply this by, I think 5 in testing was what I kind of liked it as. And so as we play the animation, you can see it's giving us some weird results right now. What you actually have to do is you have to invert this. So you can add a subtract node. We're going to subtract this value by 1, something like that. And so now if we kind of look up here, we can see that the kind of glove is kind of being built from scratch as it goes along. Okay, so I had to troubleshoot a little bit. I was curious why it was giving me this effect and all these different types of things. That's actually a very rookie mistake, and so don't do what I just did. We have to go ahead and Control A and apply the scale. I'll make sure to fix that for your guys' asset so you won't have to do this step. But yeah, we just need to go ahead and apply the scale just so that Blender understands that this is the correct scale that it is. So with that, now we have this effect where it basically is built from the ground up like that. And like I mentioned before, we're going to have to kind of animate this box because, again, this box is kind of our driver for this kind of animation. So what I'm going to do is let's go ahead at frame 1. I'm going to have the box kind of, I want it to already be exploded by the first frame. So if I move it up a little bit so that it's basically touching the top of the floor, we have it more exploded like that. So I'm going to hit I for the box location to be there. And then by the end, we'll say like frame like 75 is where I want the glove to be fully built. We're going to G, Z, and then we're going to move this up until it's basically built from the ground up. So something like that is looking good. We're going to hit I to add a keyframe right there. Hit A, interpolation mode, linear. Again, depending on what you actually want it to look like, I'm just going to keep it on linear. You can play around with the animation as you will there. But if we view it from the camera point of view now, I'm going to zoom in here. You can see that as the animation goes, we have a lot of different particles and stuff like that. And then once it kind of the box gets to the center of the object right here, it's going to start to build itself. And I kind of like the kind of effect that it gives here in terms of just all these particles floating in the air and stuff like that. So I'm not going to do anything to kind of differently affect that. You can make it totally vanish from far away, but I kind of, again, I like the kind of more dusty kind of nature of it. So there we go. We can see the object is being built from the ground up. And now if we go into the rendered view, we can see the kind of effect that it's going on. Also, our box is actually being rendered right now. So what I like to do is we can come to visibility. I'm going to turn all of these off for the raised visibility just so it doesn't have to affect anything in our scene, and we can just keep it off up there. But yeah, anyways, that is looking pretty cool. And this is, you know, the effect if you just want to leave it as is. But I want to add a little bit extra pizzazz to it. First of all, if you're noticing all these little like plus icons and all this stuff or whatever, we can come up here and turn off the outline selected just so we can see all of that over here. But anyways, we want to go ahead and add some custom materials to this. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add a set material node right here. This is going to be at the very end, right before we actually output this to our object. And we do want to go ahead and set the selection to be a specific selection. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and bring the map range node over to our selection. And then as you can see, all of this up here is this material, and everything down here is the other material. And so what I want to do is I want to add a color ramp I found to work best for this. You can use other things like a map range node and all this other stuff. I'm just going to use a color ramp, and then we're going to go ahead and bring a new point down here. We just want to isolate kind of this zone over here. So we're going to bring this over here, make this fully black, something like that. And then we need to find this intersection point. Might be a little bit hard to kind of notice. I might turn this on constant for now, just so we can see exactly kind of that line. Also, for better visibility, we can go ahead and set a material. So with our object selected, I'm going to come up here, there are two materials here. I'm just going to go ahead and delete this one. We don't need that one anymore. Plus icon, and then we're going to go ahead and call this glow. And we're going to make this just a kind of red emission color or whatever you kind of want to. I found 15 strength kind of looked nice for me, and we're going to set that to be glow over here. So now you can see it's kind of glowing up here, which is kind of a nice effect. And then down here, we're going to get really, really tight into the scene. We're just going to try to isolate where our connection point is. It's not the most mathematical way. I'm sure there's a much, much better way to do this. But we're just going to do it right there. And then push this down to something like that. Depending on, the effect that you want to do, you can make it more or less. I think that is looking pretty cool. And then we can also add some other things as well. I'm going to make sure it's not giving us any weird things at the start. Yep, it's all kind of that texture of the actual object. So that is how we add that into the scene. Just real quick and easy to add that glow. Of course, you can change the glow. I believe for the final thing, I did like a pink type of effect. And then I also went into, we're done with the geometry node setup. We can come back out to the world tab, or sorry, the 3D layout. And I'm going to go to the object shading, and let's set like a noise texture, and we can plug that into the color of our emission. So something like this. And we're going to do a color ramp right down here. And then again, let's do like a pink and red type of effect. So we'll do like a little pink here, and then maybe some hints of red or something like that, just so it gives some, a little bit of extra kind of texture to the side right here. And we can bring these guys a little closer together. Might just make it a little bit more different. There we go. So now we're starting to see a little bit of waviness stuff. Might make the detail a little bit up too, just to add some kind of cool distortion stuff. But yeah, that's pretty much all I did. Now is to actually go ahead and do a quick composite to it all, because as you can see up here, if we go to the end, we have a few things that I do notice. First of all is, of course, we want to go ahead and make this shadow and the compositing generally a little bit better, but also we don't have any bounce lighting of this actual emission material onto this little object into our scene. So we do need to go ahead and solve a few of those things. First of all, I do want to go ahead and do the depth of field. The depth of field is super important for a scene like this, just because I shot it in such a low f-stop value. And so in the camera view over here, camera settings, the depth of field, we're going to turn on. The f-stop I shot in, my camera set to a 1.4 f-stop. And so that is what I'm going to set it into Blender. Again, this is very, very important that you make sure the scale of your scene is set up correctly, just because if we didn't set this up correctly, then this value actually wouldn't be as accurate to the real world as it is right now. So as you can see, everything is out of focus. Now, the focus plane of where I'm focusing actually does change throughout this shot. So I'm going to go ahead, let's disable the glove real quick, just so we can tell where the actual focus plane is. So it's right here. We're going to go ahead and add a plane axis empty, and then I can't see that, so I'm going to go ahead and turn on extras. And all I'm going to do is we're going to make this empty be where the focus plane is. Now the focus plane is always on the floor for this specific shot. So whenever I'm moving the empty, I'm going to hold G and then Shift Z to keep it on the ground plane. So those are the buttons I'm doing there. But let's go to the rendered view. And then I'm going to set a location keyframe here. So just to set all the keyframes. Let's go to the very end of our footage. So 104. And then the plane is shifted up here. So here. Let's go to like frame 60, just half our value, roughly around there. And then we'll just keep doing it at like frame 30. It's a pretty linear kind of focus shift. But I do want to make sure I'm kind of hitting most of the clips to be the same. So there you go. So now you can see our basically our empty kind of goes towards the camera as our animation kind of plays out. So now that we have that, we can just name this whatever you want to name up here. I like to name this as focus. And then we'll go to the camera view, go up to our depth of field and focus on object. We're going to put the focus object right there. Now let's bring our glove back just to see how everything is looking there. And as you can see, it looks pretty accurate right here. You can see if we kind of look, this is kind of the area that's mostly in frame right here. And that is like roughly around this area of the glove. It is looking pretty good. And so you just kind of want to kind of eyeball everything and how it's looking in the scene. But that is pretty much how I do depth of field in shots like these, just to get kind of photo accurate as possible. And so, yeah, so this is looking pretty good to my eye. Now we can go ahead and render this out for compositing. We're going to go up to compositing up here. We're going to do a multi-pass compositing workflow. So I'm going to do a file output node. Okay, so over here, we're going to do an OpenEXR multi-layer file. We're going to do float half and then DWAA compression. Now for the color management, this is up to you, but I like to use ACES CG. So I'm going to do ACES CG right here. We're going to add some sockets because Nuke likes to have the first file be a RGB layer. I'm going to do a RGBA for the first layer. Next one, we're going to do shadow. And then the next one, we're going to do emission. You can name them whatever you want, but I just want to name them like that. Of course, save these in whatever kind of file structure that you're going to save these in. I've already saved these, so I'm not going to rewrite what I've done. But what we want to do is we want to enable some more kind of view layers. So we're going to come over to our view layer properties. We're going to go down, and the two I want is emission and then shadow catcher. So emission, we're going to plug in here, and then shadow catcher into shadow, and then image into the RGBA. Now I'll go ahead and render out a frame. Let's go ahead, try to render out a frame where it's materializing, just because I want to show you guys what is actually going to be happening with our different passes. So something like that. We'll go ahead and render this frame. So F12. Okay, so we'll come back out of here and go into the compositing. I just want to show you guys this real quick. So this is our base kind of, beauty pass, if you will. You can break it up more than this, but for a shot like that, I didn't really want to break this up. Of course, we have the emission. This is only the emission material that we have selected before. And so we're mainly going to be using this as like a way to add a little bit extra bloom to the shot. You'll see what I mean in a little bit, but I just want to have this as its own kind of mask just so that we can use this in compositing. And then finally, we have the shadow catcher. The nice thing about the shadow catcher is it actually has not only the shadow data onto the scene, but also some of the emission data as well. And so this is going to be where our pink highlights that actually go onto the footage are going to lie. So those are the three passes that we want to render out. And so, of course, we're going to come over here, save as, and then render animation. This is where you want to go ahead and render out your CGI. Okay, so finally for some compositing for this shot. Now, don't worry if you don't know any nuke or anything like that. You can totally apply these same concepts to DaVinci Resolve or After Effects. Most of the kind of nodes we're going to be using are named the exact same in the other programs as well. And so just keep that in mind. But anyways, I have this all set up here. We're going to go ahead and start new over here with our footage. Now, I do have a couple of things automatically set up, like the FPS and our resolution are set up in our project settings. And then in our color tab, we have a ACES 1.2 OCIO. This is the exact same color space I'm using in my Blender project. Again, I'll have some tutorials and stuff linked down below for color management. Color management, in my opinion, is one of the most important things and one of the first things that you should learn as a visual effects artist. Again, I like using an ACES 1.2 workflow, and so that is what we're going to be using inside of Nuke today. Anyways, let's go ahead and render in our CGI pass. So we're going to go ahead and open that over here. Select these two and hit M to merge these two together. And there you go. Now you can see we have the basic beauty pass merged over top of this, and everything is looking good. Right now we don't have any shadow, so let's go ahead and multiply that into the scene. So I'm going to add a shuffle node over here. And so shout out to Jamie on the Discord. He actually referred this to me. But if you come in this shuffle node, go to the node properties, and in label, if you hit bracket value in 1 and then bracket again, and then save that, it'll actually put whatever is in your shuffle node onto the actual name of the node. And so since most projects that we deal with have tons of shuffle nodes, it just saves you some time versus having to rename each individual shuffle node. So right now, this is the RGBA channel. We're going to shuffle out the shadow channel. So here we go. We can go ahead and merge this into our stream above our actual CGI beauty pass. So now we have this nice, beautiful shadow layer. And we want to go ahead and multiply this over top. So multiply right there. And we're going to go ahead and call that good enough. Now you can of course change this how you want. I actually kind of like it how kind of sharp and everything is right now. Just keep in mind if you do blur anything at all in any of these channels, we actually don't have any information behind the glove. And so that is where we want to make sure that we have our defocus and everything set inside of CGI from the start, just to match everything as nicely as possible. It's unfortunate that we can't do any of that stuff inside of Blender. That's just one of the limitations with Blender at the moment. But anyways, this is looking pretty nice from the start. What I do want to go ahead and do is let's just do a little bit of color correction to the actual glove itself. Now, inside of Nuke, what you have to do is you have to unpremult node, and then we're going to add a pre-multiply node. This is to do with the alpha channel. But yeah, so our gray node right here, I notice everything's a little too dark compared to the lighting. So I'm going to bump the gamma up just ever so slightly. And then also the multiply. The multiply are all the kind of white values. And so that already is looking a lot better to me. For this, I'm just going to eyeball it. But usually what you can do is get the exact values down here. And then what I'm going to do, let's add a toe node. A toe node is just a good node to go ahead and get the black value. You can, of course, do it in, where is it, lift as well. But I like using a toe node instead. We're going to select like maybe this black over here. So that is just holding Alt and then clicking over here to select that black. And so, yeah, so that just makes it a little bit darker. I might actually, or sorry, a little bit lighter. I might actually come over here and just manually select it. So something like that is looking pretty good. And then that matches pretty well to like the darkness back here. That's reading much better to my eye versus like this before. It might be hard to see on your guys' screen, but that does read a little bit better to me. And then also real quick, we do have to apply this toe node to the shadow as well, just because before it was the shadow was reading a little bit darker down there. So that is looking a lot better to me now, more matched into the scene and into the CGI. Next thing I want to go ahead and do is I want to go ahead and add some bloom to this shot. And so that is where our other shuffle node comes into play. So I'll go ahead and copy this and paste this over here. Instead of shadow, we're going to be using the emission. So again, our emission pass, we'll come back over here. This is literally just a black and, colored plate. Again, no alpha is applied here. Another limitation to Blender. I don't really love how we don't have an alpha and everything over here. But what we can do is I want to go ahead and add some subtle bloom to this shot. So I'm going to bring this over top over here. Just bring that into the stream. And then since this is actually emitting light, right? Instead of an over operation, we want to be doing a plus operation, because whenever you do, you're adding light to something or doing anything like that, you always want to plus on operation. So we can bring this emission shuffle here. We're going to go ahead and blur this out. So I'm going to hit B to blur this, and we're going to blur it by something crazy like 500 or something like that. Now this is going to be our kind of core of our actual thing. This is way too much, so I'm going to mix the plus down just ever so slightly. So something super subtle. I think the more subtle for this part, the better. So there you go. So we now have a little bit more bloom, and there are many different other ways to add exponential glow and stuff to a shot. One of my favorite kind of gizmos I've been using a lot recently is the K lens engine. We'll come over here and all plugins update. I'll have that gizmo linked in the description below. It's free, I believe. And so K lens engine, it's by Kieran Bishop. So if you plug the backplate into here, it's mostly meant for like flares and stuff. Personally, I'm not a huge flare artist. I don't like a lot of flares, so I just turn off all of the cores of the flare. And then I also want to turn off a few more things that it automatically has by default, which is the center frame bloom I don't like. And then the lens effects, we're going to turn off the chroma shift. This is just trying to add some chromatic aberration and stuff, but I don't really like this. I don't love the way it looks in this specific add-on. There are some other chromatic aberration kind of things I like better. But for this shot, I'm just going to keep it clean and not have any of that stuff in. The main one we're looking at, though, is the photographic bloom. I just find that this has a lot better bloom values. It's a lot more artistic of a bloom versus a lot of other kind of more general bloom kind of gizmos and stuff like that. But I just like the look of this so much. We're going to make the size a little bit bigger. You can play around with the tolerance. Like, for example, if we make it lower, we're getting a lot more bloom over here. And I don't really like that, to be honest. I think the less, the better in this circumstance. Something like that, like a 0.8 tolerance. Then we're going to change the strength way down to something like that. That's looking much, much better now. It's adding a lot more glow. So here is before. And then here's after, just adding a lot more kind of, you know, cool look to it. Is it realistic? You could say yes or no or whatever. But personally, I think adding bloom to these type of shots are a must. Just don't overdo it like crazy amount like we had it before. You know, something like this. We'll just make it something tasteful like that. So if you turn it on and off, you can see it just subtly adds some bloom and stuff like that. Now, the final thing that I want to add is I want to add some lens dirt to the thing. Now, lens dirt you can totally overdo, so I don't want to overdo it too much. I have this lens dirt pack over here. I'll try to see if I can find where I got this image from down in the description below. But if you have any other lens packs, let me know, because I am always looking for kind of unique lens dirt packs. And on Visual Effects Oasis, I'm actually going to be creating some here soon, so stay tuned for that. We'll go ahead and merge this back into the stream. It's going to be after our bloom right there. And as you can see, this is way too much by default. Now with lens dirt, what you have to realize is with the light of the actual, like in our case, the emission actually going into the lens and hitting the lens, what's going to happen is that only the lens dirt around this area of the lens is actually going to be affected. For example, this lens dirt and stuff, there's no reason this should be as bright over here because there's nothing in frame over here that is actually emitting light into the lens over here. So basically, we just need a lens around here. That is where a few things come into play. First is I need to make a mask to solo out this area where our bloom is. And so we'll bring dot node down here, plug this into the shuffle. So now we have our shuffle node. Again, this doesn't have an alpha channel. So what I do is I'm just going to add a keyer. And now we have an alpha channel right here. We do need this to be a little bit bigger. So I'm going to do an erode node. Yeah, road node, we're just going to set to something crazy like negative 200 or 300 or something like that. That is looking good. And then after that, we're going to do a blur and just set that to like 200, 300, just so we have a large area of basically a blob in the frame wherever our emission is, like that. So that is basically our mask for where we want the actual lens dirt to be. And then next, we do need to combine this with the lens dirt. So we're going to go ahead and combine this over here. Now, this lens dirt also does not have any alpha channel. So we're going to do the same thing, a keyer node, and we're going to multiply those together. And in the alpha channel, now you can see this is looking good. We're going to go ahead and set this, instead of an over operation, we're going to do a multiply operation. So it looks a little bit nicer now. Okay, so now we have this mask set up. And as you can see, it's giving us this type of effect right now. What we want to do is we want to go ahead and put this over here like that. And so now there is some subtle kind of stuff up here. And depending on the look of the actual shot that you want, you can have it pink. Usually what I'll do is I'll actually bring this down, bring a gray node down, and then copy this into the stream. So we're going to go ahead and put the A socket into our mask over here. So this is just basically, we're using this as a mask for our actual footage. And then we're just grading the actual footage down here. So if I set this something crazy like, 4 on the multiply, and then let's add a pre-multiply node underneath that. What we essentially have done is use the mask over here like that. We have masked it down so that our alpha channel, I might actually come to the lumens key and just bring the this side over a little bit just so it's a lot more. So we can see a lot more of the detail over here. We have basically created this mask and applied it to a very bright version of our footage and then multiplied that together. And then now if we bring it over top of that, you can see it's bringing out some of those flares and stuff like that and some of the lens dirt. So I like making this very kind of tastefully done. So what I'm going to do is we're going to multiply it up a little bit. I might actually turn it a little bit pink as well, just a tiny bit. So in the gamma, we're just going to turn it a little bit pink overall. But yeah, that just adds a little bit more to the shot. Nothing too like drastic or anything like that. Just something super subtle that your mind kind of picks up on, like some of these little hits down here and stuff like that. Just to add a little bit more realism. But yeah, that is pretty much it. That is the entirety of what I kind of wanted to showcase to you. Some of the ways we can composite this shot using all of our different passes inside of Blender. And then finally, we need to go ahead and write this out. So I'm going to hit W down here to add a write node. We're going to write this out, just do a test.mov file. We do need to change the color. And so I'm going to do output sRGB. And then H.264 is fine. And that is all looking good. Just so I bake in the color. Now, when I actually did the shot, I believe I baked it to an EXR sequence in ACCG. And then I did a final color correction inside of DaVinci, but I don't want to really show that today. I just want to showcase how we can actually get out something for a final visual effects. So let's render this out and I'll see you once that's finished. Okay, so here is the final shot that we got from this tutorial. I think everything is looking cool, especially the compositing, which really ties it in together. Now, if you made it this far, I'd greatly appreciate it if you like and subscribe for more tutorials like this. And also check out Visual Effects Oasis. I have a lot of cool assets coming here soon, so I'd really appreciate it if you check out either some of the free footage or some of the paid assets that are coming out soon. Anyways, guys, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys later.